It's always an interesting statement, like we don't find the right talent. It's going to be more and more difficult, but you can shape it.
When you strip it all back, the data, the pipelines, the funding cycles, organizations rise or fall on one thing: people. Yet somehow talent is still the most misunderstood, underinvested, and overcomplicated asset we have. I'm joined by someone whose work sits right at the intersection of science, psychology, leadership, and human potential. Isabel Verniers, partner at MTI Square, a PhD, a renowned talent and innovation strategist, and a visiting professor who has spent years shaping leaders across Europe and beyond.
Development program needs a good architecture. I think when there's scarcity on the market, I think there's even more attention that needs to be given to, okay, we have maybe not perfect profiles coming into the organization, perfect in the old school meaning of they know exactly what they need to do, they have the right expertise. You need to develop them along the way. And so I think it's about shaping or nurturing that talent.
She and her co-author Stefan have distilled decades of research and experience into their new book, The Talent Advantage, which has already started reshaping how companies think about capability, culture, and the future of work.
The talent advantage is all about the philosophy that an organization also has a responsibility to develop and nurture that talent.
More than 2/3 of life sciences companies are now investing in upskilling and reskilling their workforce. So from your consulting and coaching experience, what are the most common invisible friction points inside life sciences organizations that prevent talent development from succeeding?
All very relevant and interesting questions. Maybe my first point being is what we always look out for also with the life science companies that we work with when we focus on upskilling commercial teams. It has to do with purpose, people, and proficiency. The 3 Ps. That's also how we design our talent development.
Isabel, welcome to Drug Diaries. Welcome back to Drug Diaries, the place where we try to understand not just the science that shapes our industry, but the humans who move it forward. And today's episode is one I've been looking forward to. Because when you strip it all back, the data, the pipelines, the funding cycles, organizations rise or fall on one thing: people. Yet somehow talent is still the most misunderstood, underinvested, and overcomplicated asset we have. So today we are going deeper into what makes teams aspire, not just function, what makes leaders trusted, not just obeyed, and why so many of us confuse performance problems with what really is a leadership challenge. And to help us do that, I'm joined by someone whose work sits right at the intersection of science, psychology, leadership, and human potential. Isabel Verniers. Isabelle is a partner at MTI Square, a PhD, a renowned talent and innovation strategist, and a visiting professor who has spent years shaping leaders across Europe and beyond. Her work combines deep academic insight with a pragmatic understanding of how real teams behave in real world, often under intense pressure, limited resources, and complex organizational dynamics. She and her co-author Stefan have distilled decades of research and experience into their new book, The Talent Advantage, which has already started reshaping how companies think about capability, culture, and the future of work. So before we dive in, a little gift for the community. The first 5 people who drop a comment on this episode, whether it's your favorite insight, a question, or even a challenge, will receive a free copy of Isabel's and Stefan's brand new book, The Talent Advantage. Honestly, it's one of the most actionable books on talent and culture I've seen. And we are giving away 5 copies, so get your comments in early. And with that, let's dive into it. Isabel, welcome to Drug Diaries.
Hello, Kaushik. Thank you, and thank you for the nice introduction.
Thank you. So as we dive into the conversation, Isabel, I want to talk about something that's becoming impossible to ignore in pharma and life sciences. And many companies today say that talent scarcity is their number one structural risk. A large number of life sciences firms find it difficult to recruit qualified people, especially roles that involves a blend of scientific, regulatory, and commercial expertise. So, Isabel, my question to you is, how do you define talent in life sciences organizations today? And talent that goes beyond CVs and degrees and technical credentials. So, what qualities or mindset do you believe matters the most and why?
Very interesting question and not so easy one. But in essence, what talent is, I think it's the combination of having specific knowledge, having specific skills, and having specific attitude. Whereas you often see that people think talent is what people already or know, and it's what they bring to the table. I think it has a lot to do with also the attitude that people have and the mindset that people have. So when people say we don't have the right talent in-house, that's of course our book, The Talent Advantage, is all about the philosophy that an organization also has a responsibility to develop and nurture that talent. I think when there's scarcity on the market, I think there's even more attention that needs to be given to, okay, we have maybe not perfect profiles coming into the organization, perfect
Yeah.
in the old school meaning of they know exactly what they need to do, they have the right expertise, but you need to develop them along the way. And so I think it's about shaping or nurturing that talent. So it's something active. It's not so indeed it's always an interesting statement, like we don't find the right talent. Yeah,
Mm,
it's gonna be more and more difficult, but you can shape it. Yeah, that's a bit
right.
immediately my entry point also to the belief that I of course and that we have when we talk about talent.
Right. And coming to your new exciting book, The Talent Advantage. And in that book, you mentioned that talent isn't some rare gift reserved for a few people. Instead, you define it as a set of competencies and attitude that can be nurtured and grown. So, Isabel, in practice, when you work with companies, how do you spot latent talent that just needs the right environment or development path to flourish?
Yeah. So spotting in a way talent. I think I've been fortunate to be in a lot of development trajectories, training programs with companies. So not like one-off workshops, but because then you only get a glimpse of a person, and
Mm,
then you can also not judge. You get a little bit of a spirit of whether that's a talented person or not, but you can't really judge. You don't want to judge. But throughout these trajectories, I think the beauty of it is that you often see people's attitude, the ones that really behave like I always refer to it as like sponges that really are so open to, I've been doing it like that, but I'm hearing that there might be another way, and my peers or my colleagues are doing it in a different way. Maybe I should open up to that. I think that openness and that curiosity of what can be done in a different way, I think that's, for me at least, where I often think like, we're dealing with talented people here. In the book also we refer to like innovation talent, and we don't mean innovation from an R&D perspective only. I mean, innovation is new ways of doing things. It's
mm,
challenging the status quo, all with the goal, of course, of being more effective. And I think innovation, nurturing innovation talent can be, when I have a group of learners or participants in a program, I always start with the idea of here we can basically try and develop everyone's innovation talent, because it's something that you can learn. It has to do with increase your curiosity, increase your skills to look at the big picture, to think in
right,
terms of challenging assumptions. So yeah, that's a bit.
right.
So spotting talent, I think through, like, I have examples of that.
Yeah.
Worked in the past with Michelin in an international context, and I remember we started off in the United States. Had a nice group there of participants, like saw over 200 people there in our trainings, and then we kept on working with some teams. There was a person there, around 60 years old, who in the beginning was a bit skeptical of like, thinking about new types of business models, like why is that needed? But then, because we were fortunate enough to be in a trajectory with him and seeing him develop, he basically said like, yeah, this program is changing a bit how I look at things. And in all these years that I've been in my role or follow trains, this is the first time where I'm starting to feel like, this is really impactful. So I think it's also independent of age where talent flourishes. I think it's pushing in a way the right buttons and creating also a setting. So sometimes a right program where people get the chance to flourish.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great example. And it's one thing to want to hire or develop talent, and it's another to create a culture and system where talent can actually grow.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I know, more than two-thirds of life sciences companies are now investing in upskilling and reskilling their workforce. So, from your consulting and coaching experience, what are the most common invisible friction points inside life sciences organizations that prevent talent development from succeeding? And how do you identify them? Sorry, too many questions.
No, all very relevant and interesting questions. Maybe my first point being is what we always look out for also with the life science companies that we work with when we focus on upskilling like commercial teams. It's this, and we describe these building blocks also in our book. It has to do with purpose, people, and proficiency, the three P's. That's also how we design our talent development programs. Like, is the purpose clear to everyone? Because you can do, like I said, you can do a workshop. People wonder, why am I exactly here? What's the bigger purpose of this? Well, attend, but I don't know exactly why I should be passionate about this. So we attach a lot of value to, is it clear? Is the why, Simon Sinek style, but
Mhm.
is the why clear of this
Yes.
talent development program? The second P, the people, like, who needs to be involved?
Mhm.
Will they also understand the why? Is it valuable to them? And who are you gonna bring together? And how are you gonna mobilize them? So those are all things that need some careful thinking. We sometimes call it like a talent development program needs a good architecture. Yeah, that's exactly we're dealing with people, so it's not because you tell them to do something that they will do it. So people, a lot of interesting choices to make there as a company, as an organization. And then we have proficiency as a third P and a building block. It's which tools and templates do you give to people? And that also has to do with which consistency do you get into that. Like, I'm working with a life science company now on the commercial teams. And I think it's these deliberate decisions that we're making on indeed bring together an MSL, bring together a key account manager, work with the first line managers to make sure that they give the right messages to their teams. But how do you do that? With which rhythm do you bring them together? I think one of the pitfalls is really the lack of consistency sometimes in following up on what people are learning, what they're applying. And that's where tools and templates. So I have to say, and that's also maybe our university link and background, we're really passionate believers in the role of tools and templates. Tools that give you a thinking framework, that give
Mhm.
people in the organization like something to relate to, and everyone speaks the same language. Templates that they need to, in a way, fill in, of course, with liberty around it, but templates to follow up also, that managers can follow up on, are we making progress? And
Mm.
are we having that conversation? And are we moving into the right direction? Are we actually spotting upselling, cross-selling opportunities in life sciences? Are we starting to see better relationship with the HCPs? Are we bringing them to the next stage? Are we hearing the voice of customer, of the patient really well? Are we doing these things consistently? And that doesn't happen naturally. So that's why I'm such a believer in tools and templates. There's sometimes people who will disregard that, like, do you let people fill in tools and templates for their learning experience? That's a bit, but that's the only way to harvest things and to put them in a playbook such that people can really consistently learn.
Right.
So just to say that getting those three building blocks of purpose, people, and proficiency, and your vision as a life science organization or any other organization, to get that right is not a straightforward thing. And that's why I think, you sometimes the return on investment of talent development programs is in a way too low because it has not been constructed in that way.
Right.
And also not to say that there's one magical thing to get it right, because as I mentioned, we're dealing with people. So per definition, there's going to be pitfalls and things to watch out for. But the deliberate thinking, the deliberate architecture of what you're proposing as a talent development program, I think, for
Right.
sure, there's a better return on investment if you do these things well.
Right. It's very well said. And a lot of times we come across a situation where there's a team of directors who've been performing or overperforming year after year for decades. And when it comes to hiring a VP, the management chooses to bring someone from. So, what is it that the directors need to know or need to do differently to be considered for that next step in their career, as opposed to having another person coming in from outside?
Oh, that's an interesting questions. I don't know in a way like the numbers on how much that, yeah, how many times that happens. But of course, indeed, you do see that a lot of times externally people are brought in, and yeah, sometimes I've had discussion with people about that on people who had aspired that role and then see that an external comes in, and of course
Yeah.
one of the reasons that you often hear is that it's to bring in a way, more that innovative spirit. That there is a little bit the assumption that someone who has been in a role for a long time will suffer a bit from maybe status quo bias, or a little bit more like confirmation bias, or
Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of biases can kick in when you have been in a role in an organization for a long time, where then an external person comes in a little bit more, you could say, naive,
Mm.
and looks at things in a different way. That I could see, and that's of course also the role we play when we come into an organization to develop people. We have a different viewpoint on people sometimes,
True.
because we see them in a different way, and that then unlocks different discussions. Nevertheless, I think that externally hiring of a person, whether that's always successful, is I remember the Starbucks CEO
Yeah.
discussion recently on whether that has been the best move to bring someone really from external, also from external in the sense of external industry
Yeah.
knowledge.
Industry.
Industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think as a director wanting to move up, I think it's again, it comes down to embracing that the knowledge, skills, attitude. I mean, the knowledge of those people is without any doubt is there. It's important to keep on having the mindset, the attitude to change, to be curious, to embrace other viewpoints. And I think if you, the more you have that, the less people are triggered by external viewpoints, if you can bring that yourself in the organization. So again, I think it then in my eyes comes down to you develop your own innovation talent such that you're always
Mm.
considered also for such a role.
And you mentioned something incredibly important about your talent advantage framework and the fact that it's all about, it's not just theory, it's about the practical tools, the templates, the learning roadmaps, frameworks, and around competency development, and even ways to integrate AI into talent building initiatives. Can you give us a glimpse into what these templates and learning roadmaps look like and how practical they are? And is it something that people can apply uh, in their day to day work?
Yeah, and I can give you also a concrete example
Sure.
here of an organization, a commercial organization I'm with now, actually also in life sciences. And that's really straightforward templates that we use there on, look, they want to bring innovation in their commercial organization. They want to bring, let's say, also more empathy, more storytelling into their approach to HCPs, to patients, because they're a bit too much focused on the science behind it, the data. So, okay, you need to bring cross-functional people together to embrace that mindset. Now, in a very practical way, the starting point is, what do people see it themselves that these gaps are there? So what are improvements that they see? So in that case, we started very practically with harvesting improvement napkins from the people. And that's in a way, that's a super simple template. It's a one pager. We call it a napkin because it's so easy to write on a napkin, so to say.
Right.
And it captures some essential things of what do you think the current situation is, where do you see potentially a problem, any raw ideas on how you could solve that. We harvest that, we cluster that, that leads to some interesting discussion, and then we switch to solution mindset because you can't ventilate too long on problems. And then we have a solution napkin where already like very essential information needs to be given on what is the solution, can you give it a catchy name, what could be would you need to deliver such a solution, and what is needed in the organization to make that happen. So you just you give people the freedom in that napkin to fill that in. Then again, you can do some filtering there, and then we worked recently actually on pilot napkins, bringing people in the mindset of, okay, we can have nice dreams and nice ideas of solutions, but what are you not actually going to do? A little bit lean methodology of let's just get things going. And that's where they need to become more specific on, if it would now take me 12 weeks to bring this new way of working, what would I do? How am I going to know that I'm learning, that things are moving ahead? And so that's just an example of improvement napkins, solution napkins, pilot napkins. Super simple. I actually heard recently that people said like, yeah, this was nice now in this program. I'm also going to use it in my daily business because these pilot napkins are a nice way to follow up also with my teams on where are they at? How can I actually help as a manager or as a coach, depending on which role they take in some meetings. And so that's practical tooling that really helps people in their day-to-day business. And often you see a bit of hesitation in the beginning of like filling this in. Then it's on paper and then it's for real and I maybe need to commit to it. Exactly that. That's what we're trying to accomplish, that people feel some engagement for that improvement that they're proposing. And they get some energy by checking the boxes, like I've done that action, I've learned from that, I'm pivoting in a way. Yeah, and I think for a lot of commercial teams I'm working with, commercial teams are, in my eyes, always a bit special because there's a lot of gut feeling there. There's a lot of, I know my customer and I know how to best approach it. Nevertheless, I think it's also in such an organization that's even more importantly, it's sometimes like every day you can try and improve your approach. And it's the small things that can make a difference in whether that customer sees value. So there, definitely, I think it's sometimes eye-opening to capture things in a tool. Even a tips and tricks template, I'm personally a big fan. I introduce it in a lot of companies of, where is your tips and tricks sheet? Because it's so valuable to have that social learning element also. You don't need gurus coming in to tell you what to do. You have so much talent you often just need someone who facilitates that sharing. And that's also how companies or teams learn. You have this distinction of like 10% should be formal training, 20% is more the social learning, and 70% needs to come from applying it. I think that's really the parts we focus on, like let people apply things, capture it in napkins or templates, and then make sure that they share. Because what that does for the motivation and engagement of people, that I think is always fantastic to see. That's, I think, why I love what I do, when you see that you get to mobilize people via simple tools, simple tricks.
That sounds like an incredibly exciting opportunity, learning opportunity for everyone. And I have huge respect and admiration for companies who invest into these sort of talent development programs. I wish I could be part of one such workshop. It would be a
Never
great
say never,
opportunity.
Kaushik. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe one day. Yeah, I would love to attend one such workshop and see how it seems in the practical world. Yeah.
Yeah, but indeed, I say it like that, but I really mean it like the energy that is unleashed. Like sometimes when we're giving workshops, of course, it takes a bit of energy because you give it your all. But all of the times when it's about, let's embrace new ways of working, and let's make sure like that the team has this thing of, let's make ourselves, our organization, future proof. I think that really gives energy. That's also the energy people, I think, in sometimes like these turbulent times, I think we might call them right now that we're
Yeah.
living in. I think that's what people need, like a bit of aspiration, a bit of, energy being shared, and being future proof kind of triggers that. But then you also need to develop your talent such that they can become future proof. And that's the type of movements we're typically or types of trajectories we're typically in.
And yeah, and we see all sorts of participants. There are some people who come with a very open mind. They just come and surrender,
Yeah.
and they're open to experiencing. And while there are others who come with a lot of skepticism, a lot of reservations, and oh, another training exercise. Let's see what happens here. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the most, in a way, also the most rewarding thing, because that's also, of course, in a way, a bit of a style or philosophy. It's really interesting to not let those people off the hook, and so I also have that then in me, that the ones who don't want to be converted, okay, let's figure that out, how that exactly, why that is. And also let's see whether we can use the power of the team to convince or to let them open up. And I think that's what we're doing a lot, because we're working with a lot of experienced people often, right? So people who know their job extremely well. So it's only normal that they're often a bit resistant on new skills, new competencies. Why? Why exactly? And I think that's where the power of the team comes in. When they see that someone else actually, and I had that recently also, someone in the commercial organization in a life science company who said, like, I've been doing this for 20 years and it's going okay. We were talking about the art of asking good questions. And are you still asking enough questions to your customers? And are you adapting to your customer's style? And so we had a very practical training, a lot of skepticism of asking questions. I know how to do that. But then we let them apply it, and we let them report back also via a napkin, like, what did you learn? What did you do differently to trigger a bit of self-reflection? And then that person in the group said, in those 20 years that I've been doing this, I now realize that I have been asking better questions. And I am really happy that at my age, she said, that I'm now still adopting that, because it's already opening new doors or unlocking new opportunities. And I think that's the rewarding part. That's rewarding for us to see that happen. But I think it's mostly the moment someone speaks up, when there's another person then in the room who also has that thing of, like, I'm experienced, I know how to do it. Yeah, you need to already be super resistant to not be
mm,
triggered by your colleagues saying that they had an eye-opening experience. And that's much more powerful than, for example, me repeating 100 times that it's so important to ask good questions. When your colleague says it, much more powerful. But you need
yeah.
to put that in motion. People will not do that naturally. It's not like they're going to call a colleague, like, listen to the amazing thing that I did. You need to facilitate that. And that's the talent development program then, in some way or another, that can bring that to life. Yeah.
And Isabel, with the growing evolution of digital transformation, AI, data analytics, many pharma firms say lack of digital and innovation ready talent is a real barrier to modernizing. And at the same time, we know the pace of science isn't slowing down. So, in your view, what competencies will matter most in the next 5 to 10 years? Maybe 10 years is too long a time with the pace at which things are evolving. But so, what are those competencies for life science organizations striving to stay ahead, not just survive, but lead?
Yeah, good question. So indeed, let's not look too far ahead, but
Yeah.
nevertheless. But I think it's these, so yes, I do think there needs to be a digital savviness, but it's not about the technology. It's again about the willingness as a human being to, to want to adopt that. And
Hmm.
then it comes down again to, you'll need a huge amount of curiosity in your people. You can cultivate curiosity. You can show people the value of being curious, but it will come down, and that I see a lot in life science companies where it's no simple selling, right? It's
Hmm.
complex stakeholders. It's complex products that you need to bring to the HCP. You need to have the patient as your number one in mind. So that's complex. So cross-functional collaboration will be more important than ever, and that seems so logical. Like, yeah, of course you need to work together. But we've seen it, or we are seeing that yeah,
Hmm.
also that needs to be put in motion, because again, it's not so obvious that someone who has the customer contact, that they talk a lot to the MSL, or that they talk to market access, but there's a huge benefit in doing that. I think, for example, in life science organization, key account plans or key account review meetings are a nice example of that. You can't drive that by yourself. You need to bring the right people around the table, but then you need to have very good communication skills also to advance that discussion on an account and speak different languages, because someone very much with a science hat on speaks a different language than someone who is on a daily basis talking to HCPs. So how do you bring that together? So in a way, my answer is that the real skills, and I don't like the word like soft skills. I think the thing of impact skills is the right word for that. That those are more and more important. Being adaptive, collaboration, being extremely curious, being adaptive in your communication style, into embracing new ways of doing things. I think that's where you'll see a distinction between people who stay behind versus people who can really get things moving.
Right. And you said something interesting. You don't like the term soft skills.
No.
So let's unpack
Well,
that. Why is that?
why was that? Because but it's also, of course, I've always been used to working in more engineering science environments where, and I have a PhD myself, so I'm in the
Yes.
academic thing of the hard skills of really
Hmm.
knowing something really well about a specific topic. That's the thing that matters, and then the label is there of like, soft skills are all the things that have to do with communication, with empathizing, with listening. So all, I think in itself, the word soft just has a connotation that
Mm.
always puts it a little bit lower ranked than
Yeah.
the hard skills. And that I don't believe in, but it's also, of course, because of what I'm doing with people is trying to mobilize them. And then I think hard skills, and in our book we refer to it basic, in a way you're having the basic knowledge on something,
Mm.
that won't get you far or far enough. So the impact skills are the ones that can really move the needle. And when I talk about that, customers, definitely people in commercial organizations, I think that resonates well, because a lot of the work that they do is by using those skills well. And I feel it's just a little bit too, not demeaning, but it's just doesn't capture
Yeah.
the value of those skills. So and it's not, impact skill is not a label I invented. I've seen that a lot of people are trying to call them differently or give it another label. So I like the impact skills that I've seen somewhere.
Oh, really? I really like that. That's a very interesting perspective on soft skills, and I'm going to use impact skills too from next time on.
Ah, that's cool. That's cool. And yeah, when we talk about knowledge, skills, and attitudes, I think a lot is there in that attitude layer. So these are things that
Yeah.
also at universities, it's not something you really teach. You teach a little bit collaboration in teams, but there's
Hmm.
nobody who teaches you, like for example, a communication styles. It's one of my favorite books, The Surrounded by Idiots, because it's so obvious. We all have different communication styles. You and I have different
Yeah.
communication styles. That's the beauty of it. But of course, if you disregard those differences, then it's hard to click with people.
Mm.
If you acknowledge it and think like, "Ah, interesting. I'm different. You're different. We speak a little bit of a different language, but I make the translation in my head of what
Yeah,
you're saying because of a communication style you have. That is really enriching. But you don't, yeah, I guess that's a little bit the life experience or so that you need to master those skills really well and to have an impact.
very well said. And Isabel, I often hear stories after stories from executives about how they hired experts, but somehow things didn't click, or how they invested in training, but the old habits or politics pulled everything back.
Mm.
So, could you share one case? It could be an anonymized or high level, although you already did, but where a company applied a structured talent development approach and saw clear transformation in terms of mindset, performance, collaboration, or innovation output.
Yeah, I think I have examples of that, and I can give you one. I don't need to anonymize it because it's actually also in the book. And I think so. The CEO of the company Merck actually has written something on the back cover of the book. Yeah, that's a real example where they introduced a program, the talent. Yeah, you could say a talent development program, really focused on finding new innovative solutions. It's called InnoSpire, has been around since 2009. That's when we co-designed it with them. And ever since, that has been running. Sometimes on a yearly basis. It's something that goes over multiple months because it's about developing, of course, new business cases. So that doesn't happen overnight. But so they do it on a regular basis, the consistency. Super important. It was not a one-shot thing. And what was key there is they branded it really well. So InnoSpire, innovation, inspiration, it really became a brand people want to, because it's still ongoing, want to be part of. And they want to learn new competencies on how to think of new commercial ideas, how to bring something to market. They want to be part of that band of brothers or sisters type of
Yeah.
vibe that you get in there. And that has led to not only business results, because of course, let's not forget, you also need to be able to show a return on investment of programs that you do. Sometimes, of course, it's indirectly, but there it's directly because it's really practical work on business cases. And at the same time, that such a program has built the culture of how to develop innovation talents. So I think that's a nice example. It's written also in the book. We actually also have a case on that where it's so nicely explained on how it respects also the principles of, in a way, intrinsic motivation, bringing intrinsic motivation to your employees, give them some autonomy, give them the right competencies with tools and templates that they know what to do, but also make sure that there's some sense of relatedness, like that people are not doing that in isolation by themselves, that they can benefit from the whole dynamic in the organization. So, the self-determination theory principles are present in such a program. And I think that explains also a large part of the success ever since.
That's a great
And that's a
example.
life science case, so perfect.
Indeed. And can you also think of an example where things didn't go as planned? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think we have also seen situations or programs where it didn't go, or where you could say that maybe the result or the impact was not as big as anticipated. And oftentimes it has to do with a lack of focus. For
Mm,
example, that the organization involved too many people. Because even though, of course, the philosophy here is the talent of everyone needs to be developed and can be developed, doesn't mean that you immediately need to do that at one shot. And I think so, wanting a bit too much immediately and having a little bit maybe too much theater in a way around it sometimes has left a little bit of a, maybe that could have been done more impactful if we were a bit more focused on what we exactly wanted to reach. And that's then more because there's always a thin line in these talent development programs also, because are you doing it for the culture and for the mindset, or do you also have a business result in place? And I think what is super important, what we've also learned over the years, and that's why we're so passionate about purpose, people, proficiency, and getting that clear from the beginning when you develop a program, is you need to make clear choices. If you're in it for the culture and the results are not so important, yeah, then let's go big bang, and a lot of in a way theater in a good way can be done. If you're in it because you also at the same time want to see some concrete business results, you need to make it very focused also. Then you need to think carefully about who to involve, which exact tools to give. So I think choosing and focus is the main pitfall then there. And yeah, can't emphasize it enough how much we feel that architecture in the beginning needs to be done in the right way. Yeah.
And Isabel, I believe, and I know you do too, that great leadership isn't about titles or hierarchies. It's about creating space where people feel seen, supported, and free to contribute. And in life sciences, where the stakes are high, the work is complex, that becomes even more critical. So, if you were brought in by a CEO or board today to reset culture, what are the first three changes you would push for?
Oh, that's that's an that's a super interesting question. But I would really, yeah, and I rely then again on my three P's. If CEO would bring me in, I would really emphasize that we need to get the purpose really, yeah, really clear. And I would devote a lot of attention to hearing what the engagement is that we want to bring, what future proof means, and whether, in a way, an important gap analysis of where we are in terms of being future proof. I would really look at also for the people aspect on how that engagement currently is, and whether people are feeling that they are part of also that bigger purpose. And I would really take a very good look at in terms of proficiency, where the competencies are, and see whether we can streamline that to also have measurable results towards becoming, more future proof. That's maybe a bit
Right.
of a vague answer because I don't know exactly what to
No,
see.
I think you. No, I think you're right because a lot of the things depend on the situation. So I'm sure there's some discovery involved before sharing any sort of recommendations. So I think this
Yeah.
is a hypothetical question,
No,
of
but
course,
it would be how, or it is at least how we would always
approach.
approach it. Wouldn't
Yeah.
pretend to know better because there is no one size fits all. If there's one thing that I've learned over the last 20 years is I don't believe in this one magical recipe. I think
Mm,
actually it's in the details of how to get the building blocks to work together such that it fits the organization really well and the culture well. So yeah, it's a little bit of a more boring answer, but it's a very nuanced one. And maybe that's why I love also what I'm doing. And that's why we captured it in a way also in the book. It is the design, it is the carefully, strategically thinking about how to push the right buttons.
right. And how do you start reshaping culture in an organization with legacy systems and entrenched silos?
You start small, I feel. So, because of course there can be the big ambition to change a lot of things, which I think is nice to have. That's the purpose we've been talking about. You need to have a clear one. But then I think you cannot change everything. So I love that whole, I talked about it before also in another context, but pilots. I love the fact of set up something small that is
Mm,
in line with where you want to go and all the things you want to change, but learn quickly from that. And then that way it spreads the change. And that's about also carefully thinking then if there's a lot of legacy, if there's a lot of resistance, yeah, maybe you first need a group of ambassadors bring a group of ambassadors together that are more on that open mindset that can show or can lead by example. But also that I think is a learning over the years of small, in a way, small steps. And some people will say like, "Whew, yeah, that's way too incremental." But that is the way I think to get things moving. Yeah, I
And
recently looked at. Sorry, but I now thought of because I saw yesterday again this video of Obama.
okay.
23, I think it was, when they asked him, what advice would you give to young people? But in general, I thought it
Mm,
was advice that is for anyone in learning applicable, where he said, like, I would definitely advise them to just have the attitude of get things done, get stuff done. It's not difficult to raise a lot of problems. You can raise problems about anything. It's another thing to solve them. But even there, you can get stuck in big solutions and big changes that you want to make. But where are you going to start? And who are the people who are actually going to get stuff done? So, in a way, maybe Obama is referring to piloting.
yeah.
Heard him? Because basically, he's saying you just need people who put things in motion.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can dream
Right.
about the perfect talent development program that will make your organization future proof. It doesn't exist. But you can put up or start with some type of program carefully designed with a
Mm,
pilot group of people, see results, learn from that, and move on and make it bigger.
yeah. I think that's a great approach. Start small, get the evidence of success in,
Yeah,
and then
quick
scale up.
wins. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the power of quick wins. I work a lot of the work when you're working on or innovation talent or developing talent. It's not to be underestimated the importance of sharing successes.
Mm,
Again, that seems also again such an easy thing to do. Like you share successes, everyone is motivated. Somehow, a lot of teams don't have that rhythm of doing that also in an intellectual way, where, for example, it's really about a customer case where I'm sharing how I really turned that around, how I made that bigger, and that links to the culture. Before that becomes a cultural thing, before that becomes very natural, sometimes you need to embed that in a template of like sometimes we do that with customers, like a wall of fame or a playbook that has really nice stories, and that motivates people. That triggers some people to think like, I also have a use case like that. I think I want to share that with the team. Makes you visible in the team, gives you some sense of pride, and I think that's how then as an organization you learn. So playbooks, templates are all things that help in making learnings tangible.
and Isabel, our listeners will include pharma marketeers, biotech innovators, leaders, but also people who may be evaluating whether their organization is future ready.
Hmm.
So, what would you say are two or three actionable steps a small to mid sized life sciences companies can take today, even without a big budget, to strengthen their talent base and build a more innovation ready culture?
A more innovation ready culture, I think it's small steps they can take is start maybe with the reflection on where they're at. So in the book we actually also listed 10 innovation competencies, and we actually also have them in the cards, the card game that we made. But I think that's a good starting point in the sense that it has things like, are you inquiring enough? Are you embracing new methods like pivoting and setting up pilots? Are you adaptive? I think a small first step could be in a way, a self check on where do we feel we are at given everything that's happening. And basically start designing a little bit on, okay, if we focus on a couple of these competencies that we maybe need to improve upon, what
Mm,
could be a small program that we set up? Very practical program. No, not too big on the theory, but more like, can we, for example, generate some ideas for new solutions or new business models or just some more creative thinking? And can we mature that idea into a clear value proposition, and that will unlock in itself. And that's a small program. That doesn't need to take a lot of time or a lot of effort, but it will put it will bring some fire, I feel, to the team to question. So to me, it always all starts with questioning a little bit yourself or reflecting a little bit. Look in the mirror. Are we ready? Are we really ready enough as a team? And if an organization is willing to look in the mirror, then I think a lot is possible to do small ideation workshops, small, like these solution pilot napkin type of workshops that I talked about. A lot of the tools that we work with and templates are in the book also, which I think
Right.
can sometimes also be a nice starter for.
And before we wrap up our today's conversation, I saw your recent LinkedIn post and you recommended some books, some very interesting books. So after our listeners have read The Talent Advantage, what other books would you like them to recommend?
Yeah, so that's the first one, of course. But I mentioned it. So one of the books that I mentioned when I was talking about impact skills is so Surrounded by Idiots book. Just because I feel, and that's for anyone in professional, personal life, it's eye-opening. Once you start talking in terms of red, yellow, green, and blue, it makes conversations so much more pleasant in a way. So that's one that I would recommend to everyone. As I mentioned in my post, it's now becoming a habit in a way that every time that I talk to a person, I'm starting to think like, okay, how can I figure out as quickly as possible what type of communication style this is, such that I can also adapt a bit, and that will lead to a better conversation. So that one for sure. And I love the title, Surrounded by Idiots. We are all idiots in a way, because we all have our language. And then the other one that in a way I also indirectly already talked about it is Atomic Habits. I think it's just so straightforward when you read it. It's like, indeed, it's good to be ambitious. It's good to see the bigger picture. But on the other hand, 1% improvement is such an important thing. So it's like, take small steps and see what that unlocks. And the effect that you have in a year is it's fantastic. But you just need to do it consistently, so to say, every day. So that's stuck with me. And then a third one that I recently got into is the Mel Robbins. It's a little bit more general, but the let them theory. And why I thought that was so interesting, because at first I always thought, let them. That seems to be like an interesting attitude to life, maybe not one that I like, where you just ignore everyone's opinion. But then when I went into the book, I now got it, that it's the let them, let me theory. And actually that let me part is probably maybe even more important. It's about, you need to take control yourself over your own energy, over your own reactions to things. And that shouldn't be dependent on what other people think about you. And that's easier said than done. That's why it's a nice book on the theory and the mind hacks that you can do. Let them and let me stay in my strength and take responsibility for my own actions. So it's these simple, I'm a big fan of mind hack type of things, because I think they make the difference in on a daily. And then for commercial people, I still love Challenger Sales. I know it's a book that has been around for a very, very long time, but the principles underlying it of like, let's all this in commercial teams, it's often very good to be a relationship builder and to empathize with your customer. I think the Challenger Sales philosophy is still relevant for a lot of commercial teams on, can we stretch ourselves to be a bit more challenging, to be a bit more of a partner to our customers, and not just someone who follows the customer, but who also stretches the customer because it's in their best interest. You then apply that by the art of listening well, art of asking good questions, adapting your communication. To me, those concepts, I make them come to life a lot in the commercial trainings that I do. So those are 4 books that really had, I think, an impact on me. But I could continue for a long time about other books. That's for another time.
That's a great set of books you recommended. Thank you so much. But first recommendation is The Talent Advantage.
Yes,
Before
yeah.
the listeners get onto these books
Yeah, yeah,
fast.
yeah. So
Talent
please,
advantage.
that's for sure. Yeah, and if you want to have some provocative questions for your team, I think then the card game is also really, really nice. Yeah, because a book is nice, it's super nice. So Stefan Schwemmers did a great job in writing everything down in the book. But is now nice also is the card game that we now have on that is really nice to spur discussion in your team on indeed what is the impact of AI on our talent development. Do we need to develop the talent of everyone? Do we believe in that?
Yeah, it's a pity that we couldn't have Stefan on our today's show. But
Maybe next
Stefan,
time.
if you're listening, Stefan,
Yeah,
let's get
I'll
together next time.
I'll talk to him.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our today's conversation, Isabel. Thank you so much. Thank you for your clarity, your honesty, and for bringing such human lens to a topic that too often becomes abstract or over intellectualized. And what I love about today's conversation is that it reminds us of something simple but profound, that organizations don't transform, but people do. And when you invest in talent, when you build the right culture, when you create an environment where people feel trusted and inspired, everything else follows. And before we wrap up, a reminder: the first 5 people who comment on today's episode will receive a free copy of Isabel and Stefan's new book, The Talent Advantage. If today's conversation made you reflect on your culture, your team, or your leadership, leave us a comment and one of those books might be coming your way. Isabel, it's been an absolute privilege having you here. Thank you for your time again. And to all of you listening, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Drug Diaries. I'm Kaushik Trivedi, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you, Kaushik. Thanks for having me.